Hello and welcome to the latest edition of the Sportsballers podcast. I'm Evan Ash, joined as always by Corey Puffett and Eric Meyer. Today on the show, we've got our typical NFL discussion, some college football, but we will start in the National Basketball Association. Apparently, it was opening night last night, even though it seems like they just got done playing. So, Eric, go ahead and hit us with whatever happened in the NBA. I was kind of in and out on the. I think there were two games last night.
Yeah, there were two games on last night. The NBA season kicked off first at 7 o'clock with the Nets and the Warriors playing in Brooklyn. This game wasn't particularly interesting because it was a blowout. The Nets destroyed the Warriors pretty much, wall to wall right away, right off the bat. Since there were only two games on last night, and it was the first game of the season, I decided to be a little more observant than usual. Like, normally regular season basketball, I just watch it, and it is what it is. But I figured I'd keep tabs on seeing what's going on. And, it was not great for Golden State. I guess I'll start with them, even though normally you'd start with the victors in these type of situations. As I mentioned, the Warriors acquired Kelly Oubre in the offseason, like sort of at the last minute as almost like a replacement for Klay Thompson when they found out that Thompson would be out for the year. They figured that he would come in and bring some energy and some scoring punch. And, of course, they acquired Andrew Wiggins last year when they traded D'Angelo Russell away to the Minnesota Timberwolves. And if you know anything about Andrew Wiggins, you know that his career has been a big fat disappointment since he was drafted number 1 overall. And I guess people hope that the Warriors will be able to rejuvenate him, and obviously it remains to be seen whether or not that's going to happen. But it didn't get off to a very good start last night. Both Wiggins and Oubre were awful. They were laying bricks all night, couldn't make a shot. I tracked all the possessions of the first half yesterday for both Golden State and Brooklyn when each was on offense. And in those first half possessions, the Warriors had 59 possessions. 10 opportunities were created by Stephen Curry for people to make open shots. And Oubre and Wiggins missed all of them.
Wow.
So out of those 10 shots that Steph created, they only generated 9 points. So when you get open shots, you've got to knock them down. Curry created 6 open threes for teammates. Only one of them went in, and it wasn't either Oubre or Wiggins. He also created 3 layups, of which only 2 were made. And he also created an opportunity for James Wiseman, who got to the free throw line and made 1 out of 2. So 8 total points on those shots. Not exactly going to cut it. Those are the opportunities where you've got wide open looks. You've got to make hay on those. And that didn't exactly go to plan. But the opportunities were there. The score looks like if you didn't follow the game, you might see 125-99 and expect to see me say, well, the Warriors' defense was horrible or the Nets' offense was unstoppable. But that's not actually the case. The big reason why the margin was so high was actually because Golden State's offense was terrible. This is a very fast-paced game. The Nets only scored about 1.09 points per possession, which is pretty average, especially given how much talent they have. So the Warriors actually held it down a little bit at times defensively. It's just that their offense was so bad. I mean, they could not hit any shots to save their lives. I mean, even Steph wasn't exactly hitting his shots, but of course he wasn't being left wide open either. So, he's going to have to step up his production a little bit too. But these other guys have got to hit their open shots if the Warriors are going to have any chance of competing this year, because you can't surround, a guy that looks like, 10 shot creations in one half is incredible. And it shows that Steph is still the best shot creator in the league at this point, but it doesn't matter if the guys aren't going to hit him. So a more positive note for Golden State, though, is that their rookie James Wiseman had a really nice debut. He scored 19 points in his first game.
Wow.
He looked like he belonged, which is something that typically a player in his first game, especially in the bright lights type of situation that Golden State is, you're going up against Kevin Durant and Kyrie Irving in Kevin Durant's first game back after a long time off. So you could easily see somebody like that getting overwhelmed, and that didn't really happen. He looked like he was confident. He showed his athleticism. He showed why he was such a highly touted pick. I think if you're a Warriors fan, obviously you can't be happy about what you saw last night overall, but you can certainly be happy with what James Wiseman did. And if he continues to put forth efforts like he did yesterday, you're going to quickly see him become a go-to option for Stephen Curry and for Draymond Green when he gets back, because he's showing all the potential early. I mean, he's going to have his bumps and bruises. He had a couple of plays yesterday where he was a little out of position defensively. He had one really hilarious turnover where it kind of showed you, wow, he's really trusts his game. Also, he trusts his game too much because he plowed right into Kevin Durant for an offensive foul. But you'd rather probably see that than someone be timid, and he certainly was not that. And most of the time, it worked out. He looks like he's the real deal. So as for the victors, the Nets, Durant and Kyrie Irving both look great. KD scored 22 points in his debut. He only played 26 minutes because, again, it was a rout. Kyrie Irving was cooking all night. He was tremendous. The Warriors had zero answer for him. He was scoring over anybody they threw at him. There was one possession where they left Brad Wanamaker on him, one-on-one, completely isolated, and Kyrie just took him apart in systematic fashion. And I was just like looking at the TV. I was like, send help, guys. He's not going to make it. And sure enough, he didn't. So that was a really impressive showing by both of them. The Nets had a lot of turnovers, but I'm figuring it's a relatively new roster, so that's going to come with the territory. They turned the ball over 20 times. But Karis LeVert, who was sort of their star player last year, with Kyrie Irving being on the shelf so long, it was going to be interesting to see how his role changed in this coming season, given the fact that he wouldn't be in the starting lineup anymore because he was effectively the point guard for the Nets, and now Kyrie's taking that role, and Kevin Durant is obviously taking the primary scoring role, we would presume. So what's left for Karis LeVert? Well, he came off the bench, and he was a problem for Golden State. Marquise Chris, the backup center for the Warriors, actually did a pretty respectable job containing LeVert, but anytime he was playing on a wing or a guard, he was having his way with them. So it's not exactly a recipe for success when you have to switch your big onto a guard in order to defend him adequately. But and most teams aren't going to be able to have that versatility, especially coming from their bench. So this could be a really compelling offensive team that the Nets had. I was impressed with what I saw from them for the most part last night. Defensively, there's going to be some problems. Like I said, I mean, as good as Steph Curry is, when you give up 10 open shots in the first half, that's trouble. That shows some serious defensive breakdowns, and I'm not sure that that's going to get any better. But this team could run out and score a lot of points on a lot of people, which means they're going to win a lot of games in the regular season.
Okay.
So the second game was Clippers and Lakers, battle for Los Angeles, whatever that means at this point. The Lakers got off to a slow start but clawed their way back into this game. But ultimately the Clippers were able to come away with the win. They had a nice surge at the end of the third quarter and then just pretty much rolled from there. Paul George came back with a vengeance after his embarrassing bubble performance that had all the memes out and people out for blood when it came to him. But he was by far the best player on the floor last night. Dominated, played well on both sides of the ball, was scoring at will. I mean, the only person on the Lakers that seemed to be able to contain him at all was Anthony Davis, and you can't throw Davis at him every possession. But he had a hell of a game. You got to give him credit for that. Obviously, it doesn't mean much when it's December, but
yeah, he's playoff P.
Yeah, it's
a
start.
Shine at the beginning of the season.
Yep, and you could also see some of the things that the Lakers did and some of the things that they came through with in the offseason when they acquired Dennis Schroeder and Montrezl Harrell. Schroeder was tremendous in this game. I remember watching a lot of Lakers games last year and noticing, despite the fact that they were the championship team, they only had one guy that could create open looks for people, and that was LeBron James. And then Dennis Schroeder comes along, and with LeBron on the floor, Dennis Schroeder is running the show, which is atypical for a LeBron James team. But that's going to give the Lakers a luxury that they weren't able to do last year, where LeBron's going to have periods of times where he's going to be able to, I don't want to say take possessions off because that sounds like a pejorative, but where he's not necessarily expending so much energy offensively that he can maintain that high defensive motor that he sort of rediscovered in the postseason this year, which is what made the Lakers such a threat defensively. Whereas if he has to go out there and do everything on offense, it's going to be really tough expecting him to hold up, especially given the shortened offseason, the fact that they made their run last year. And we saw some of that show up last night. LeBron was oftentimes passive in this game. He clearly doesn't seem to be inclined to put in full effort in every game, and frankly, I don't blame him. His postseason ended 2 months ago, and suddenly they're back in it. You're going to see LeBron James take a little bit of a back seat this year, and I think that that's okay, at least until the postseason. I think the Lakers are still significantly better than the Clippers. The Clippers largely look like the same team to me. The difference is that Paul George showed out tonight and LeBron wasn't fully there.
Okay. Were those the only 2 games we've had so far? Has there been anything else that's even happened?
Nope, those are the only 2 last night. There's a slate of games tonight. The Wizards make their season debut tonight against the Sixers at 7 o'clock. I might try to catch some of that game depending on how long we run our mouths for on this podcast. That's not to put any pressure on anybody. I'm not all that concerned. I'll get to the game when I get to it.
Okay. Well, I mean, the Wizards are must-see TV. We don't have any mailbag questions from our 25 listeners. Y'all need to get your mailbags in. We do the show every Wednesday. I don't know what's taking so long, frankly. Hope to hear from our loyal listeners very soon. Let's jump to college football right quick. This past weekend was the conference championship games, and Alabama rolled, and Ohio State had a little trouble with Northwestern for a little while. It seemed like the type of game where Ohio State was just playing with their food before they ate it. They knew they were going to beat Northwestern, but they didn't really show up in the first half and didn't quite get it rolling until later in the game. Clemson beat Notre Dame. That game was not close at all. Saw that coming a mile away. And those were really the only games of any consequence. So our top 4 is Alabama, Clemson, Notre Dame, and Ohio State. Notre Dame's number 4. Do y'all feel like Notre Dame should have some second thoughts? Do y'all feel like Notre Dame is overseeded, maybe? And that Texas A&M should have gotten a look instead of them?
I kind of, in the moment, I thought that. Like, I said that in one of the chats that we were in discussing the games, that when they were getting beat down by Clemson, I was thinking, wow, can you really put these guys in after something like that? But at the same time, it's not like Texas A&M had any more impressive showing against Alabama. They got smoked. So, I mean, I think it's more palatable to put Notre Dame in because they had already beaten Clemson, despite, I realized that Trevor Lawrence wasn't there, but they had that win on their resume. And other than this ACC championship game that they got beaten pretty badly, they were undefeated before that. Plus, I think the optics of having Notre Dame play somebody that's not Clemson helps too. They're going to be playing Alabama, who's going to smoke them, but they would smoke probably anybody that would be the 4th seed. Whereas if you put A&M in there, we've already seen that act before. So I think there would be a little bit of hesitation to take Texas A&M over them. I think that ultimately, I think they got it right. I think that when Notre Dame gets beat down by Alabama, which they will, people are going to say, oh, you should never have put them in. But again, I'm going to say anybody else in that 4th seed had no chance to win. There's nobody that was deserving of the 4th seed, quote unquote, that could hang with Alabama. So, I mean, it is what it is.
Yeah. I mean, say Clemson had lost. I feel like the only other team that even deserved consideration to go to the playoff would be Texas A&M. And like you said, Eric, they got smoked by Alabama earlier this season. So, and to be fair, we have seen this before from Alabama and Notre Dame in the 2012 BCS BCS championship game.
Sure.
I believe Notre Dame was ranked number 1 playing Alabama, and I think Alabama just scored again.
Yeah, Eddie Lacy ran right by Manti Te'o and his girlfriend again. So
yeah,
I was in Orlando watching that game at a bar because I went down to Disney World just to visit a buddy who worked down there, and that was the first night we got there. We said, hey, let's go check out the BCS title game, and we got there, and it was about as embarrassing as one would have expected. But that's obviously ancient history compared to what we have now. But I don't think the outcome's going to be any different. A note about Ohio State, like you said that you thought they were kind of playing with their food. I think it was more just. I don't think that they took the game lightly. I think it was more like football happens, right? Like sometimes things just don't go right. Sometimes somebody makes a freak interception, or somebody has a bad day that you didn't expect. It just seemed like for whatever reason, all the stars were aligning for Northwestern that first half, where every break was going their way, every big play went their way, whereas then eventually Ohio State just figured it out, but they were clearly the superior team, and they ended up putting it away.
Perhaps all the planets were aligning.
Yes, Steve Levy was right about that without knowing it, and I'm just that was infuriating when he admitted that he didn't actually know that was a thing.
Oh yeah.
Like I thought, like, dude, you've got to take the credit for it. You can't, even if you didn't know, just it sounded cool, and then you ruined it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, I just feel like Ohio State, they just look kind of sluggish, like they just all eaten a big turkey dinner, and Northwestern acted like they were playing the big boy in their conference, whereas Ohio State, they seemed to me anyway, like they were just kind of, yeah, well, we're here because, we just should be.
So let me ask you this. Are you concerned at this point about Justin Fields as a pro prospect based off of what we've seen last couple weeks or so? Because he hasn't looked very good.
I was concerned about him last year, to be honest. Like he's clearly not as good as Trevor Lawrence. Have to have Hugh Jackson over for a socially distanced tape session to look at the other quarterbacks coming up in this draft. But I do have some questions about Justin Fields, although he'll be an upgrade over probably some NFL quarterbacks, to be honest. Like some of these guys. At least the way Sam Darnold has played. Dwayne Haskins, we'll get to him later. Who else has been playing like crap? Ben Roethlisberger, maybe. Like, some of these guys. Like, oh boy. So yeah, I'm looking forward to the playoff games. They also announced the entire New Year's Six Bowl situation. So Florida and Oklahoma in the Cotton Bowl, UGA and Cincinnati in the Peach Bowl, Notre Dame and Alabama in the Rose Bowl, which will be in Arlington, Texas, the literal day after the Cotton Bowl. So it's a quick turnaround for the grounds crew and whoever's working in there. Then you have
not
Ohio
even
State
a full 24 hours later. It's like 20 hours later.
Yeah. Sleep fast.
That's just kickoff times, not even including the time it takes to play the Cotton Bowl.
Oh, yeah. The Cotton Bowl is not going to end till like midnight. So I'm sure gates open for the Rose Bowl in Jerry World. Gates will probably open at like 2 o'clock or 2:30.
Yeah, so we're talking probably like 14 hours.
Yeah. So we'll see what happens there. Then New Year's night, Ohio State and Clemson in the Sugar Bowl, Oregon and Iowa State in the Fiesta Bowl, and then Texas A&M and North Carolina in the Orange Bowl.
Any new crazy bowl game names this year, Evan?
A lot of bowl games got canceled. I didn't really look through the bowl game names. We have the Cheez-It Bowl. That's the only other ranked versus ranked game. Oklahoma State and Miami. That's in Orlando. But other than that, it's not really. I think there was a really strange bowl name. I'll have to look that up at some point.
I mean, I still laugh at the Cheez-It Bowl. That's hilarious to me.
Yeah, I mean the R&L Carriers New Orleans Bowl, like just some of these bowl games are just absurd. Um, yeah, I still can't believe y'all thought that the Big Green Egg Starkville Integrity Bowl was real.
I just thought it was too crazy to like come up with on your own.
I mean, yeah, that's I guess that's why it worked. There's the Myrtle Beach Bowl, Montgomery Bowl, Famous Idaho Potato Bowl, RoofClaim.com Boca Raton Bowl.
I remember that one. I think that was one of the ones you gave us last year.
Yeah, it was a different sponsor last year. Lending Tree Bowl, Radiance Technologies Independence Bowl.
Oh my
canceled.
God.
Duke's Mayo Bowl.
Why not
Transperfect
Kraft
Music
Mayo
City
Bowl?
Bowl. What is these
Kraft
names?
is superior to any other mayo.
Yeah. Let's see, AutoZone Liberty Bowl. Ticket Smarter Birmingham Bowl.
Yes, the bowl game names are weird.
They're so stupid. There's a Red Box Bowl. Was canceled. San Diego County Credit Union Holiday Bowl.
Why does that have to be the Holiday Bowl? Why not just the sponsor name? Oh.
I don't even know. And where would they even play that game?
There's
no stadium in San Diego anymore.
Did they get rid of it? They tore it down?
Yeah, the Qualcomm Stadium or whatever it might have been called this week started its demolition.
Huh.
So be sure to check your local listings for all these bowl games. Most of them are, if not all of them, are on ESPN. ESPN is going all in on bowl week in air quotes, even though it's 2.5 weeks long. So yeah, I think that's it for college football, unless y'all have anything to add there.
No, I think I'm ready to get to
the
pro football, where we have a whole lot of lone wolf games this week to talk about.
Yeah, I kind of went a little crazy on the picks.
It wasn't even just you. Eric has quite a few lone wolf games.
Oh, okay.
I didn't think this week was that hard to pick, but hey, whatever.
Yeah, I was just jumping around. Let me pick somebody here and here. We'll start with Week 15 takeaways, and we will start with the football team. I did not see this game, and I didn't have the red zone on. The Ravens were on TV. So, what did y'all think of the football team?
Defense good, offense bad, mostly because of the coaches and Dwayne Haskins. J.D. McKissick played pretty well on offense, but that was about the only good takeaway I have for the offense. Everything else was abysmal. But the defense, as usual, played well. They kept them in the game against a good offensive team. I mean, it's not like Chris Carson has been playing poorly. Chris Carson's been playing really well since he's been back on the field for Seattle. Russell Wilson played okay. He's got good receiving targets, but their offensive line is really bad, and Washington took full advantage and put a lot of pressure on Russ all game long and kept him from really ever, having a stretch of plays where he could feel comfortable. He made a few nice plays, but he couldn't really string a lot of them back to back, and that allowed the football team to stay in the game. But the offensive play calling was just crummy. I think Haskins pretty much did what the coaching staff wanted him to do as far as where he was going with the ball, but he wasn't accurate on his throws. He made a lot of good plays with his feet. When he got out of the pocket and he decided to run for a first down and things like that, he moved around well and he picked up a few nice first downs with his feet. But throwing on the run was not a strength. There were one or two plays where he had an opportunity to just throw the ball away, and instead, either took a sack that he didn't need to take or ran out of bounds behind the line of scrimmage.
What?
So that, that wasn't good.
Joe Flacco used to do that when he was a rookie.
RG3 used to do that. It drove me nuts. So it just was, on the offensive side, it was just a comedy of errors. The coaching was horrible. It seemed like at times they were, Eric said on the chat, and it just felt kind of the same to me, it seemed like they were trying to test Haskins the same way that they did on that 4th down and goal earlier in the season when he was still playing. And they didn't need to do that. This is not early in the season where we're thinking, okay, the Eagles game might have been a bit of a fluke and we're probably not going to be good. We're probably competing for a number 1 overall pick. So we got to see what we have with Haskins. We're solidly in the playoff race. In fact, if Washington wins this week and the Ravens do what they should do and beat the Giants, Washington wins the NFC East this week. It's over. Mm-hmm. They're in the playoffs. So there's absolutely no excuse for testing Haskins at this point in the season. You need to manage Haskins and do what you can to make sure that he does not lose the game for you. And there were several times during the game that it didn't seem like that was what the coaching staff was doing. I get that that maybe you're thinking this is a throwaway game. Hopefully the Giants lose tomorrow, and hopefully we have Alex Smith back next week. So I get it from that perspective. Maybe you want to still test Haskins, but at this point, I think that we know what Haskins is. If there was any question about what Haskins could be, he would have been the backup all this time to, before Kyle Allen got hurt. Like, he would have been Kyle Allen's backup instead of Alex Smith being the backup. So I was less than pleased with the coaching last week. Haskins certainly deserves his share of the blame. And the defense played well. Happy with the defense.
Who was the Washington offensive coordinator? Who was that person?
Is it still Scott Turner? Is he the offensive coordinator, or is he a position coach?
I don't know.
I'm gonna look that up real quick because I think it's Scott Turner. Yeah, he is. I don't know if he's in charge of calling the plays or if it's Ron Rivera. I'd imagine it's Scott because Ron Rivera is more of a defensive coach.
Yeah, Ron Rivera doesn't call plays.
So,
I remember a few years ago there was a fan brought a sign to a Washington game that said, "Let Ovechkin call the plays," which I thought was delightful.
It might be just as good as the current play calling, quite honestly. I haven't been super impressed with the offensive play calling at all, like at any point this season, but this past week in particular just wasn't very good. Logan Thomas played well on offense. I should give him credit. I have not been very quick to look at him as a viable tight end option going forward for Washington this year, but the past few weeks and this week in particular, he's really stepped up, and he could be a real contributor for this team long term. I think he had like 16 catches this past week.
What?
He was the only guy outside of McKissick that Haskins could actually get the ball to. It seemed like he couldn't get the ball to Terry very much.
Oh, just got breaking news alert from ESPN. Wednesday's Thunder versus Rockets game has been postponed. It didn't say why in the alert.
Huh. I mean, we know why.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Rockets don't have enough players because of coronavirus protocols.
Okay. Well, I mean, that's kind of typical of what we've seen from the other sports the last 4 months, right? Like, the Marlins and the Ravens and the Cardinals, the St. Louis Cardinals, and the Titans had some issues. So,
the Ravens.
It is what it is.
So I guess we can talk about Dwayne Haskins a little bit, because after the game, there were a couple things that happened after the game. So immediately after, as he was going off the field, he looked kind of downtrodden. He was just kind of like walking along with his head hanging, and Chase Young came up behind him and basically was just like, "Here, run off the field with me." And so he started jogging off the field with Chase Young. So shout out to Chase Young. Just he seems to be a leader for this team going forward. A lot of fans are very excited about him. They're already talking about lifetime deals for him, which you always want to kind of slow your roll with talk like that, but I can see it in this case. Like Chase Young, he's just special. He's special on the field. He's special off the field. He's special in the locker room. So
he's a real deal. Absolutely.
Yeah. But Dwayne Haskins later after the game apparently was at a strip club and was not wearing a mask. And so he's been fined $40,000 and he's been stripped of his title of captain, which led to me wondering why that hadn't already happened. Like, I get that the players voted him as a captain, but it seems like once you bench a player, especially a guy who's supposed to be, was supposed to be your franchise quarterback, you're supposed to be figuring out if he is going to be your franchise quarterback, and you've gotten to a point where you've given up on that. That would suggest to me that he's not doing the things that he needs to do to be an effective leader, at which point, as a coach, I would probably go ahead and overturn my players' vote at that point, because the players may have felt that way about him before, but he clearly is not the guy who should be looked up to. That's one of the things about being a captain and being a coach of a captain, is that it's not just about going with who your players want to follow. Yes, it's important to pick captains who the other players want to follow, because otherwise they're probably not going to be effective. But you also have to make sure that they are players that you trust, right? You need to, if you don't trust a player enough to give him an instruction and know that it's going to be carried out, then he's worthless as a captain. So I was surprised that had not already been taken care of, but it has as of today.
I mean, I don't understand with Dwayne Haskins. What are you doing? Like, there's a pandemic. I don't know if you noticed or anything, but there's a pandemic going on.
And y'all are in the middle of the playoff race.
Yeah, it's kind of a big deal. And like Corey just said, the playoffs are happening for this team.
Even if you're not going to be the quarterback in the playoffs, God willing, Alex Smith will be back and healthy. You can still spread it around the locker room.
Yeah, talk to the Broncos. They had to play a game with no quarterbacks. Corey, you picked up the guy who actually played quarterback for them, started him in fantasy, got negative points.
Yeah, I did. In your
you
league,
deserve that.
But yeah. Yeah, I figured I would try and game the system, play with wide receiver, and it didn't work. I still won that game, though.
He kept throwing picks.
Yeah, I still won that game.
Yeah. Yeah. So I mean, you got to think about people other than yourself in all situations all the time. And Dwayne Haskins failed to do that. So, I mean, you certainly should be stripped of your team captaincy at this point. Like, you're clearly not the leader that you're claiming to be. Not the leader that the C on your shirt says that you are.
You're not the leader that your teammates want or need.
Yeah. So, oh my goodness. It's just disappointing, I guess. He's 23 years old, and there's a lot of people saying he's immature and all this kind of stuff. Like, that's not an excuse to me, right? Like, that's just not good enough. If you're going to be in the NFL, you're going to be, once you turn 18, you're responsible for your actions. So, it's immature. Like, he better be mature. Like, this is grown man time. So
Yep.
Either get it done or get out. That's how it works at the pro level.
So your Ravens, Evan.
Yeah, the Ravens. Ravens rolled the Jags 40-14. It was a little closer than I would have liked, to be honest.
Get out of here.
No, I'm serious. It was it was kind of close in the first half.
Your starters were out like almost by halftime.
Yeah, well, Lamar threw an interception on the first possession. But then the Jags committed a penalty to get the exception return nullified, and then the Ravens got a safety because Minshew held onto the ball too long. So that's how that worked out. And then the Ravens marched down, scored a touchdown. But yeah, I would like to see a little bit more pass rush against the Giants this coming week. But other than that, really, it was a pretty good game. The defense let up a little bit down the stretch, but in today's NFL, you're probably going to give up about 20 points every single week. So, it's hard to find stuff to complain about this game. So, which is nice. So this week coming up, we got the Giants. The Ravens should beat the Giants. We should. The Giants are on the cusp of getting eliminated from the playoffs. The Ravens also played the Giants at home in Week 16 of 2012, and we know how that season ended. And I was at that game. So that was nice. The Ravens' playoff situation, we need to win out, and we need help. So we need the Dolphins, Colts, or Browns to lose a game. The Dolphins have the Raiders and the Bills. The Colts have, they have Pittsburgh this week. I don't know who the Colts have in Week 17. Probably somebody they're going to crush. And then the Browns have the Jets, who just won a game, and the Steelers.
I'm guessing the Colts have the Jaguars in Week 17 just because I know they've already played the Titans and the Texans twice.
Yeah, so it would be the Jags.
And usually it's all division games in Week 17. So
yeah, and the Jags beat the Colts in Week 1.
That was a long
yes,
time
it
ago
was.
at this point.
I mean, that was 13 losses ago for the Jags. So, times have changed since then.
Yes, they have.
I want to talk about the Steelers for a minute. What is going on with them? They seem to have spun and got a bankrupt on Wheel of Fortune. Like there's nothing there anymore. It's all gone. I don't understand why they suddenly forgot how to football. Like Ben Roethlisberger can only throw short passes. His receivers only catch some of them. The Steelers' defense is pretty good, but you can't win a whole lot of games only playing defense. You have to play offense too, and the Steelers just can't execute.
The defense also deserves a little bit of blame because the defense has not been quite as locked down over the past few weeks as it had been. It's not a sieve by any stretch.
Yeah.
But it has regressed a little bit. But yes, most of the blame certainly falls on the offense, where Ben Roethlisberger, by his own words, has been playing like poo. He said that either today or yesterday. He was like he admitted that he deserves some criticism when he plays like poo, as he has. And the run game has been basically non-existent. Their offensive line, which in the past has been notoriously good at run blocking, has been anything but that over the past several weeks. They managed to win a few games during that stretch, but since then it's kind of reared its ugly head. And then there's just Juju cursing his team. He says today that he is done dancing on opponent logos, but maybe he should dance on the Steelers logo this weekend to try and fire up his own team, because clearly it's been working to fire up his opponents.
Well, their game against Cleveland is in Cleveland, but when the Ravens played in Cleveland last week, the Browns didn't have a logo at the middle of the field.
That's true. They just had the orange line at the 50.
Yeah.
He still danced there.
Okay.
So, but yeah, so the Steelers will be hosting the Colts this week. We'll be talking about that a little bit later because that is one of several Lone Wolf games we've got.
Okay. Well, I mean, with this juju dancing thing, like if you're gonna be dancing and stuff, if you're gonna be showboating and celebrating and whatnot, like you have to back it up with your play on the field.
He has not been
Like
doing that.
he has not. No, he fumbled the ball, and let's say it was like early in the first quarter. Got lit up by somebody, and the ball goes flying. Uh, like people who dance at midfield at pregame can't be the same people who fumble during the game. Like that's just inexcusable. Well, I think it's inexcusable to fumble the ball, period. But
in his last
still.
5 games, he's only got 154 receiving yards. He's averaging 5.5 per reception, and he's fumbled the ball twice.
Oh, jeez. Yeah, so the Steelers have got to tighten up a lot of stuff. I don't understand why they can't run the ball. Like their left tackle Villanueva's supposed to be all pro and all this and all that. One of the Pounceys, whichever Pouncey they have at center, is all pro and all everything. So you got these stud linemen. Why can't you run the ball? What is the problem? Running backs are replaceable anyway. So if you block for him, you just sign some guy off the street who was at LA Fitness, and have him run behind the offensive line. You should be able to gain some yards, but they can't run the ball. They can't run the ball at all. I don't understand. So, and then Roethlisberger has aged about 100 years this year. He can't throw the ball more than 10 yards down the field. So the Steelers have become half-dimensional.
Yeah, I mean, you look at Chase Claypool, and like he's completely disappeared over the past month, but the main reason for that is because he's kind of their stretch-the-field guy, and Ben can't seem to get it to him with any kind of accuracy. He did make one nice downfield touchdown pass to Deontay Johnson this past week, where Deontay had to create some separation in the last 5 yards of his go route. But I mean, that's by far the best downfield pass Ben has made in the past several weeks, and it's it might be the only good one he's really thrown lately. So a lot, that's part of the reason why Juju is only averaging 5.5 yards per reception in the last 5 games, is because he's only, Ben is only targeting guys within a few yards of the line of scrimmage. I mean, most of Deontay Johnson's catches have been, short passes as well. He's just been a little bit more shifty in finding space and being able to, get some extra yards after the catch. But even Deontay Johnson, I mean, I'll take a look to see exactly what his average is over the past 5 games, but I don't think that he's really been averaging huge numbers per reception because he's getting a ton of receptions.
How long is it until somebody mentions Deontay Johnson at when they're doing a live news interview at the scene of some sort of disaster? Just the way he can't catch the ball.
Well, he caught everything. He caught everything that touched his hands this past week against the Bengals. So we'll see if
like Aguilar,
that has fixed itself. But yeah, so over the past 5 games for Deontay, I mean, he's averaging 8.2, which it's not as bad as Juju, but it's still not as much as you would expect. Somebody who has that downfield ability and does get downfield targets, but Deontay has 40 catches on 61 targets in the last 5 weeks. Part of that is because he's been dropping so many balls. Part of it is because Ben has been a little more inaccurate. I would say that of those 21 incompletions on targets to him, it's probably about half and half.
So, can we just say it? Because I'm going to say it. Ben Roethlisberger is washed. Like, he's done. Like, stick a fork in him, he's done. I mean, he has Drew Brees syndrome right now. Like, simply unwilling or unable to throw the ball down the field. The difference is that Ben has never been a details guy, right? Like, he's never been a guy that is the cerebral pick you apart guy that can get away with the fact that he doesn't have big playability anymore because he's so damn good pre-snap. He's so damn good at knowing where to go with the ball. He's never been that player. He's always been the backyard football type of guy. Just go run routes and I'll run around and get my nose broken and then chuck up a bomb and be awesome. He can't do that anymore. So he's lost his ability to be a high-level quarterback at that point. That was his main asset, and it's gone. He's not the same athlete that he was, and he doesn't have the ability to adjust to it because he hasn't put in the same level of work as other quarterbacks. I think that's a totally fair assessment for where he is right now, and that's why I don't see this getting any better for Pittsburgh, because they're not going to have a bye week to figure this out. They're not going to have a week off to look at it and say, okay, what can we do offensively to mitigate the fact that Ben isn't as good of an athlete anymore?
Yeah.
They're not going to have that time. So I think that they're in deep trouble. And like we'll talk about it a little later, but they might have won their last game of the year this year. They might be done winning until next September.
It's possible, and I think that you make a good point because you think about early in the season when we were thinking, wow, Ben is kind of back. A lot of that was because we were seeing him make plays where he was moving around either within the pocket or outside the pocket, extending the play, and then finding a guy open, running along the back of the end zone for a touchdown. And he was actually making accurate throws on those plays, which, 2 years ago, the last time we really got a chance to see him play with any large sample size, he was throwing those balls 10 feet too high when he was targeting guys running routes into the back of the end zone. So that seems to have gone away over the past several weeks. He's not extending plays as effectively. He's not really running around, and he a lot of his throws, we keep hearing broadcasters talk about this during Steelers games. He's leading the NFL in the quickest, turnaround from snap to getting the ball out of his hands. So he's not really doing that anyway. Everything is short passes. Yeah, I mean, I think I kind of see the same thing you do, Eric.
Yeah, and the thing is, that's not to suggest that Ben can't have a good game. The issue is that when you get old, and we see this with all of the old quarterbacks, even the ones that are still good, this happens to Tom Brady and has happened to Tom Brady over the last 5 years, where towards the end of the season, he gets a little worn down and does not perform as well later in the season because he's old. A lot of these guys can go out there and look great for 4 or 5 weeks, but it's a 16-game season. The difference is that, one, Brady manages himself better than Ben does. I don't think that's not a knock at Ben. Brady's just weird like that, and he does all this crazy crap to his body to keep himself whatever he considers in shape. Plus, again, Brady's always had the luxury of at least playing well enough and having a team that's good enough to earn a bye week so that he gets that week off before that second season so that he can put together 2 straight games of being competitive and then potentially another bye week before the Super Bowl. So he gets a lot of time off worked in, whereas the Steelers aren't going to have that luxury because one bye week and they've fallen off the tracks a little bit. So, I mean, it's going to be – they got to figure it out real quick, and I'm not sure they're going to be able to do it.
Even without the expanded playoffs this year and only one bye week, the Steelers have fallen to the 3 seed.
Yeah, because the Bills pulled ahead of them.
Playing wild card weekend anyway.
Yep.
Yeah.
So I don't know what the deal is. I mean, I had the most among us of confidence points in the Steelers over the Bengals, and I am flabbergasted that the Steelers lost the Bengals.
I should have made that bet on this game instead of the other one.
I could not believe they lost that game. That was shocking.
Yeah. Why the Steelers never lose to the Bengals? Never, ever, ever, ever. It's unbelievable. I can't come on here and explain, oh, well, this is what happened, this is what happened, this is what happened. No, they stink. They didn't play well. That's all there is to it, really. They can't catch the ball, they can't run the ball, they can't throw the ball. They play a little defense, but they let Ryan Finley take one to the house on them. Guy, who's that guy? So it's they have nobody to blame but themselves. I don't think the Steelers have been getting beaten the last few weeks. I think they've just been blowing it.
The only thing more amazing than the Bengals beating the Steelers is them doing it and T. Higgins not scoring enough fantasy points to put Eric in the Sacco Bowl.
Not even close, man. He was like 10 points short.
I mean, we've and the Jets, the other team that deserves a half hour of criticism in this show is the Rams. What are y'all doing? Like, did y'all not get the Evite to the stadium that day? Your stadium that you paid $5 billion for? That's in a hole 100 feet below ground level because of airplanes. Like, how in the world do you lose to the Jets in any circumstance ever? Right? Joe Namath doesn't play for the Jets. Not even Mr. Butt Fumble himself is walking through that door to play quarterback. Their coach is a complete buffoon who's incompetent and googly-eyed. Like, how do you lose to that team at home? At home. It's unbelievable to me.
Yeah, I don't know. The Jets have been showing a little bit of fight lately.
Yeah, I mean
that doesn't mean you lose to them. Like, that doesn't excuse that, but
they were about to beat the Raiders.
Yeah, they should have beaten the Raiders, although the Raiders, the Rams are certainly better than the Raiders. So,
yes.
They should have taken care of business here. There's no excuse. Sean McVay had a, as always, impressive post game despite a very unimpressive outing for his team, where he talked about this can demoralize us only as much as we let it. I'm like, well, if for my own sense of reality to stay grounded on planet Earth, I feel like I should be demoralized by this.
Right.
This idea that I can put this behind me. It's like, no, I actually shouldn't be able to. Because once I do that, I've detached myself to all that is reasonable and smart. You should feel ashamed of this. If you don't, that shows a lack of self-awareness that shows you that you're not a very functional human being. I mean, there's no excuse for this. You can't lose to the Jets, especially when you're the Rams and you're in the middle of a playoff chase. I mean, they've got a
But you're a division leader.
Yeah. I mean, how do you...
They were a division leader. Now they're not.
Yeah, they had their taco bye week for people that watched the league. They know what that means, and they lost it. They somehow managed to lose on what should have been effectively a walkover, and that's just you can't live that down. I don't know what they were doing. I get that the Jets were fighting because they didn't want to be an 0-16 team, and I respect that. But there's a reason they were an 0-13 team. It's because they're terrible. And the Rams are not terrible. The Rams are a pretty good team. They've got a great defense. And Jared Goff just sucked. Like, what do you do?
And now there's a good chance that the Jets will not have the number one pick in the draft.
And the Jets have now ruined their draft position.
Yeah,
this might be the worst thing that's ever happened to the Jets.
I mean, I've kind of thought about this a little bit with the Jets and the number one pick. Like how this idea that you got to go 0-16 to get Trevor Lawrence. I'm like, okay, but that's not going to solve all your problems. Trevor Lawrence is the really, really nice sports car. It doesn't help if you still have a crappy house that's fallen down. And that's what the Jets are. They don't have the infrastructure organizationally to handle having Trevor Lawrence. I mean, this team is broken because they're the Jets. It's not because, we just need the right quarterback. It's like, no, you're in this position because you are who you are. And every time we see teams tank for that hot number one pick, how often does it actually work out for that team? It usually doesn't. Even when it's supposed to be this hot generational talent. Andrew Luck made the Colts competitive, but they never got to the promised land. Why? Because organizationally they sucked. They hired a terrible GM and they held on him for too long, and he got Andrew Luck killed, and he gave up playing football. So I don't know if I buy into this idea that the Jets ruined their franchise by winning a game.
Their franchise is already ruined.
I think that the steps they need to take to fix their franchise go beyond just getting a good quarterback. And maybe they'll take those steps. But picking Trevor Lawrence number one overall ain't going to convince me that you've done it, because everybody would do that.
Oh, well, yeah. I mean, I agree. I do feel like, say the Jets do draft Trevor Lawrence, right? Like, then they would just turn into the Chargers this year. They would still lose a whole bunch of games, but hey, our quarterback is young and really good. But they still wouldn't win anything because the people making decisions and signing the checks are clowns. Like, who's the Jets general manager? Why does he get to keep his job, for example? Who's that guy? We know the coach needs to be fired. They never should have hired him. Adam Gase has gotten 2 head coaching jobs in the NFL just from standing next to Peyton Manning for 15 minutes. I don't understand why people think he's an offensive genius or anything, because his teams can't play offense.
Yeah, and the thing is, like, I understand giving him a shot because of the success that his offense has had in Denver. Because
Peyton Manning.
Yeah, I mean, I still get giving him a shot because Peyton Manning, while he was great, was physically not quite Peyton Manning. Even in the good years that he had, including the record-breaking year, he still physically wasn't Peyton Manning. He was mentally Peyton Manning, which is why he was amazing. But, they found a way to manage, like I talked about this earlier with Ben and with other quarterbacks, they managed some of the physical limitations that Manning had until it got so bad for him physically that he simply couldn't do it anymore at all. But so I get giving him a chance. But as soon as you find out that he wasn't worthy, why would you go out and hire him right off of firing? Like that's nonsensical. It's not like, oh, he just got a bad shake in Miami. No, he was terrible.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, the Jets should have rehired Rex Ryan. He's available, Rex had some success there. You can't say he was completely terrible like Adam Gase has been and was in Miami.
Yeah, I feel like Rex, some of his reputation comes from the fact that he's such a clown, but he did do a good job, or at least didn't ruin what was a pretty good thing that they had for those couple of years. I mean, he got those Jets defenses playing at an elite level.
Absolutely.
He just couldn't get the quarterback situation right, and then he moved on to Buffalo, and I guess the bloom had completely fallen off the rose because he effectively ruined that Bills defense when he got there. Because the 2014 Bills had a really good D. They went 9-7 that year on the strength of their defense, and then Rex got there, and the defense was just trash. But his time with the Jets, he did something. That's more than you can say for Adam Gase, and that's more than you can say for a lot of people that have coached the Jets in the past. So
and Matt Patricia, who did nothing as well.
Yes,
he didn't coach the Jets, but
he stood next to Bill Belichick for a little more than 15 minutes, but that got
for
him
30 minutes.
Yeah, he got his job that way, and that's wonderful. It kind of just goes to show, though, that you reap what you sow. When you're somebody that doesn't understand football, but you insist that you can somehow make it work because, oh, I know how to do this. I know how to operate things. I know people, right? Like you see people
You're
say
a stable genius.
Like, yeah, you hire the best people, like some would say. It's like,
you have the best words.
No, you're just hiring people that you can connect with because that's your buddy. We see that with Dan Snyder all the time. He just hires guys because it's like, hey, I can connect with this guy. He's my boy. He's my buddy. He'll kiss up to me. It's like, no, you got to go find somebody that knows what the hell they're doing and get out of the way.
Yep.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So the Jets are a disaster, and got to feel for their fans who have to feel hopeless at this point. We finally won a game, and it's the worst thing that's ever happened. Like how I mean, the cognitive dissonance there is incredible. Like you win a game and it's bad.
But you've got to take the silver lining. You will not go down in history as one of those teams that couldn't win a game. I mean, that's something you have to avoid.
Yeah, at least the 2020 Jets season will be forgotten pretty in the near future.
Yeah, they went 1-15. In all likelihood, that's how they'll probably finish. So, I mean, that's going to be like, okay, they were bad. But we've seen teams go 1-15 or 2-14. That happens. Losing all of your games, there is such a difference for that one win. And you could say, okay, we didn't get the generational talent at quarterback, but at least we didn't completely sully our brand in its entirety by going 0-16. Because the teams that go 0-16, they're never good franchises. They're
Oh,
terrible.
and the Jets are one of those.
Exactly, but you still don't want to be attached to that. Like, there's never like the Cowboys went 1-15 that one year, but they still won a game. Okay, that winning a game matters some. Going 0-16 just makes you a total punchline for the near and long term future. You'll never live it down. The Lions haven't lived it down, even though they got Matt Stafford out of it. I mean, it's just something that hangs around your neck like an albatross.
Who did the Browns draft after they went 0-16? Was that Myles Garrett or was that somebody else?
They drafted Baker Mayfield after they went 0-16.
Oh, Baker Mayfield.
They drafted Myles Garrett after they went 1-15.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
And
So-
then Hugh Jackson kept his job after that.
Yes, he did. And in fact, they also, I think, they got somebody else's pick, and they drafted Denzel Ward with the 4th pick after they drafted Mayfield. So, and they also drafted Nick Chubb somewhere along the lines there. So they had a pretty damn good draft. I mean, you can say what you want or have opinions on Baker, but he's a serviceable quarterback at worst at this point, and that's more than Cleveland's had for their entire
Centuries,
Yeah.
basically. Yeah, Baker's played well. He's been impressive. Just he's been on fire the past couple of weeks. And I also get the sense that he knows he's been on fire the last couple of weeks. Like, he seems to have a confidence and a swagger about him that he didn't really have in 2019. Like, he just seemed kind of...
No, he's always been a dude that's been run off of that type of that energy, and when he lost it, it was readily apparent with how he played.
Yeah, so, like, he feel like in all his press conferences, he's doing the very best he can to say that, or he's doing the best he can not to say that he woke up feeling dangerous that morning.
Yeah, he's avoiding the sound bites for the most part, which, probably a good thing because, again, yes, he's having a nice second half to his season, but for all intents and purposes, he still hasn't done anything yet, right? Like, his overall season, you wouldn't call it great. It's pretty good. You gotta do it for a whole season at a high level before you could start really, leaning into the swag like Patrick Mahomes or something like that. You got to earn it, and he's earned his keep as a quarterback. He hasn't earned his keep as a potential sort of diva type of player. That's definitely not something that he's earned yet. Although I still love the guy and I'm still rooting for him.
Yeah. So I believe Cleveland clinched a playoff spot. Did they? No.
I don't think they have.
No, they haven't. Never mind. I thought they did.
They're knocking on the door, but they're not quite there.
Okay. Yeah, because if they lose this week, let's just say they lose to the Jets.
Not losing.
Let's just say for a second, right? And the Ravens win out, then Cleveland falls all the way to 8th place.
Assuming the Dolphins win their game.
Yeah, assuming the Dolphins and Indy win their games. Yeah. Cleveland falls to 8th. So, no, Cleveland hadn't clinched. But if and when they do clinch a playoff spot, they'll end the longest playoff drought in the NFL, and then that honor will fall to the New York Jets. So, yeah.
As it should.
Yeah, as it should. Let's see. Where are we in our sheet here? Sort of went on a tangent.
But it was all football related. It wasn't like we were talking about our,
It all related back to the Jets.
Yeah. Let's see. Marvin Lewis and Jim Caldwell. What's going on with them?
So
Caldwell had an interview with somebody.
Yeah, both of them are interviewing with the Texans, which, good for them for getting interviews. They both, if they want to coach in the NFL, they both deserve shots to coach in the NFL again. It's just a little bit weird, looking at the Texans, especially in reference to Jim Caldwell. The Texans still don't have a GM. And, you would think that you would want to wait to hire a head coach or to offer a job to a head coach until you've kind of figured things out for a GM. Especially for Jim Caldwell, you look back at the Lions, they brought in a new general manager, and it was only a matter of time at that point before they got rid of Caldwell, even though he'd been coaching pretty well, even though he had a couple of 9-win seasons before getting fired, simply because we knew that GM wanted Matt Patricia.
And now that GM's been fired too.
Yes, now that GM has also been fired.
Seems fair.
I feel like the way it should work, like if I were a team owner, I would hire a team president, and then the team president would hire the general manager, and then the general manager would hire the head coach.
Sounds like a lot of steps.
It sounds like a properly run business.
Yes, it does.
Yeah, I mean, it
Yes,
sounds
it
a
does.
little bureaucratic, but I feel like that's how it should work. Like everybody has one person that they answer to going on up the ladder.
I mean, I don't mind an owner taking on the role of like a team president, like he runs the business operations. I just think that the owner, unless the owner has some qualifications to run the football team, they shouldn't be doing it. They should, I mean, they absolutely should say, okay, I'm going to hire a football guy to do this. I'm going to keep my eye on it, because it's my job. I am the owner. I'm the boss. I have oversight, but I'm not going to insist that my input be taken, as top priority because I'm not a football guy.
I feel like if I were a team owner, I would hire a team president, and then I would just tell him, call me if you need anything. I'll be at a beach somewhere wearing sunglasses, and that's it.
Yeah, the priority of the owners is primarily to grow the game. It's to
make money.
It's to make football make more money. And obviously winning is part of that for certain franchises, but their place is to promote the game and to create opportunities to promote the game beyond the sphere of NFL fans. So the ownership should be focused on that. Obviously, you worry about your own house some, but it shouldn't be, I want the nitty gritty of on how the football team is operating because, again, it's not your expertise.
Yeah, talking to you, Jerry Jones, for example.
Dan
Jerry
Snyder.
played football, so he thinks he knows everything about it.
I mean, we played some football in the backyard growing up. Obviously, I should be a general manager too. I mean, when Jerry Richardson owned the Panthers, did he deal with any personnel on the football side? Did he do any of that stuff?
I don't know.
I have no idea. I know he did some other things that got him to lose his team.
Yeah, he did some other stuff. He commissioned some statues of, I guess, larger than life-size panthers with giant testicles. That's a thing that happened. I think they just recently removed those, like within the past year. And then the only other owner I can think of who, had some football knowledge was Al Davis. Like he played and then coached and then owned and then was AFL commissioner for a little bit or something like that. So, he sort of went a little kooky toward the end, but wouldn't we all, frankly? Back to Marvin Lewis and Jim Caldwell, I feel like they both kind of got a raw deal. Like Marvin Lewis was a really good coach, and I think, especially if you're the Bengals, how much the Bengals historically haven't really done a whole lot of winning.
I mean, I get it for the Bengals, though, because Marvin Lewis had been there for so long and had not won a playoff game. They'd made it a few times, but they kept losing, and at some point, you have to get somebody new in there just to try and shake things up because,
Because what? Getting to the playoffs is a bad thing? Like,
if you lose every single time and you feel like you can make a
playoffs.
run, then you need to change something up. Like I get it. Marvin Lewis is a good coach, and if he wants to coach somewhere, he absolutely deserves a shot, But I look at it I look at Marvin Lewis in a similar way to how I looked at I think Marvin Lewis is a better coach than I thought that what's his name with the Cowboys now?
McCarthy.
I thought that Marvin Lewis was a better coach than McCarthy was anyway. But I look at it in the same way. McCarthy, they kept making the playoffs, but they weren't doing anything once they got there anymore. And at some point, you need to switch some things up because it's just not working. The Panthers ended up being able to switch it up for a different reason because they weren't playing very well in the middle of the season, so they decided to get rid of them.
Packers.
Yes, thank you, the Packers. But it's kind of that same situation. They're making the playoffs. What's bad about that? There's nothing bad about that inherently, but when you feel like you should be able to win a playoff game and you're not doing it, at some point you have to, just freshen some things up. Doesn't mean that you don't deserve another shot when you're ready for it. Now, I think at this point McCarthy has kind of shown that maybe he shouldn't be a head coach at all, but Marvin Lewis definitely still deserves that second shot to show that he can do it.
Yeah, I think it's situation dependent though, because like you mentioned Mike McCarthy versus in comparison to Marvin Lewis, but Mike McCarthy, the franchise quarterback, hated him. Like,
well, yes,
Aaron Rodgers couldn't stand him. There were reports of him.
Well, yes, and that's why they ended up doing it in the middle of a season and not specifically because they made another playoffs and didn't win a game. But I had been thinking for some time that it was time to freshen some things up with the Packers anyway.
Yeah, but I feel like anytime we hear some team freshens things up by getting rid of a good coach, it doesn't work out. Because here's the thing with Marvin Lewis.
Ask the Lions.
Marvin Lewis was not the ceiling for the Bengals. The ceiling was the dysfunctional organization. The fact that the owner didn't care and whoever ran the team didn't seem to give a damn about, having any intangibles or character with teams. So Marvin Lewis had to take this group of guys that might have had some talent, but were also basket cases to deal with, like Vontez Burfict, like who's the Pac-Man Jones. He had to deal with him for a long, long time as well. It was consistent with the Bengals that Marvin Lewis somehow managed to make these players function at a level that was good enough to make the playoffs. If he had been put in a better situation, I think they could have won some playoff games. I don't think he was the problem.
Well, sure. And maybe he'll end up with a team that doesn't have those dysfunctional issues, and this will end up being, a sort of a kindness toward him. To not make him put up with this anymore. But the bottom line is, even so, even if you are the issue as the owner, or even if you're the issue as the GM, at some point you're going to feel that way. So I understand that. I don't look at Jim Caldwell as the same situation in Detroit because it had only been a few years. He'd only had 4 years as their head coach. That's that's not the double digit years that Marvin Lewis had in Cincinnati, where they had made several playoffs and every single time got bounced in the first round.
Yeah, the problem is for an ownership group or a front office to look at a head coach who is probably overachieving given what you've given him, for them to say, maybe I'm the problem and we need to fix some stuff within ourselves so that we can give him adequate resources to win. Instead, they're going to say, we're only going 9-7, or we might win the division occasionally, but we keep losing in the playoffs because we're surrounding him with a bunch of malcontents and an average quarterback and expect him to go win the Super Bowl. Instead of saying that, they say, you're just not good enough. And they get rid of him, and they bring somebody in that actually isn't a good coach, and he gets overwhelmed and gets run out of the building almost immediately.
I'm not saying the Bengals were smart to fire Marvin Lewis. I'm just saying that ultimately, I don't think they necessarily made that much of a difference as far as the difference between winning a Super Bowl and not winning a Super Bowl. They were not going to win a Super Bowl with Marvin Lewis. And whether that's Marvin Lewis's fault or not is irrelevant as far as I'm concerned. Because that's not the point that I'm making in why I think that it wasn't the worst thing in the world for the Bengals to fire Marvin Lewis.
I mean, I don't think it was the worst thing in the world either, because I think that a lot of times the coach doesn't really control as much as people think they do. Like they can obviously have a big influence, but it's rare to find a coach that becomes the brand. Like that's probably the only place that's probably the case is New England. And even then, Bill still needs players. I mean, we've seen it this year. Yeah, he's still a highly respected, brilliant coach, but his team's not winning because his team doesn't have players. And a big part of the reason why they don't have players is because they've done such a poor job managing their assets to turn that into NFL talent. So it's kind of come up to bite them in the ass.
Okay, I guess we exhausted that. See, we talked about the Steelers, Juju, and Big Ben. Do we have any bad beats this week, Eric?
None that I saw. I don't have the vast resources of Scott Van Pelt or Stanford Steve, so I can't go diving into Maction or Division 2A college football to determine if anything crazy happened. But as far as I saw in the NFL, I didn't notice anything.
Okay. And then our best and worst of Week 15.
Yeah, so speaking of the Steelers, Ben Roethlisberger and Juju Smith-Schuster were the worst quarterback and wide receiver of Week 15, according to Football Outsiders.
Dear. It's not what you want.
So our talking point was quite relevant.
Yes, it was. Josh Allen was the best quarterback of the week. For running backs, the best running back by total DYAR was Dalvin Cook. He also went back-to-back as the rushing winner. The worst running backs were Kalen Ballage and Josh Jacobs, your boy Evan. And
Josh Jacobs scored a touchdown.
He did, but he also, I think, grassed one. So, yep. And then the best wide receiver.
Terrible.
Yeah, Kalen Ballage was awful. They need to just focus on using Austin Eckler. He's back. He's healthy. Use him. And then the best wide receiver. So just like quarterback wide receiver on the worst side was from the same team. Josh Allen's top target, Stephon Diggs, was the best wide receiver of Week 15.
It's almost like those two things are connected.
Sometimes they are.
Mm-hmm. Imagine that. All righty, on to our game picks. My sister's not here this week to crush us again.
Well, she can still send picks in if she wants.
Yes.
She won last week. She actually beat Eric. Eric won our contest between the three of us, but she had more points than Eric did. And she had the most correct picks out of anybody in our contest.
Goodness gracious. Maybe I should just let her pick for me.
Might be better off.
Maybe I'll do that in Week 17, because clearly I'm not picking these teams right. Corey, have you pared down the games?
I have. So we're good to go.
Oh, okay. We're talking about all of these games. All righty. Christmas Day, Vikings at Saints at 4:30 p.m. We're all in the Saints. Corey and I have 11. Eric, you only have 7 on your Saints. What makes you a little bit less certain than Corey and myself?
Part of it is the Vikings are not terrible. They're a solid team. The Saints are coming off of back-to-back losses. Drew Brees was clearly not 100% against the Chiefs, and he figures to not be 100% probably for the rest of the season. I mean, maybe he'll get there by the postseason, but I don't see how you get healthier while playing football. But that's just me.
Yeah, that's not a thing.
And there's also some history here. The Vikings have, in the last few years, have given the Saints a lot of trouble. They beat them twice in the postseason in pretty heartbreaking fashion. But the more recent one, the Saints were a significant favorite, whereas the first one, the Saints were an underdog that was actually in the process of pulling an upset. But last time it was not the case. And even back in 2017, when the Saints turned the corner and became a good football team, during the regular season they got lit up by Sam Bradford. So it's just the Vikings.
What?
Yes, Sam Bradford torched the Saints in Week 1 on Monday Night Football in 2017, and the Saints were good that year. So there's that. So history is not on the Saints' side necessarily as much. I know that they're the better team. I would take 70% Drew Brees over Kirk Cousins any day of the week. I know that Michael Thomas won't be there, but I think the Vikings' defense is significantly more flammable than the Chiefs. And I think that the Vikings' strength is running the football with Dalvin Cook, and the Saints' running defense is very good. So that's why I'm ultimately going with the Saints. But the Vikings have enough in their bag of tricks to potentially make this a tough game for New Orleans.
Okay. I mean, I have a hard time seeing the Vikings winning, to be honest. The Vikings, they seem to be, like the Chargers, they just seem to be cursed or something. Like something's just wrong with the situation there. They just they just don't win. I don't see it from them. Kirk Cousins, he throws a lot to Thielen and Jefferson, but then he throws a lot to the other team as well. They run the ball really well with Dalvin Cook, but then their defense is so bad. You can't, when you're always behind, you can't run it as much. So I just don't see it from the Vikings. I feel like the Vikings thought when they brought in Kirk Cousins that they were a quarterback away from winning the Super Bowl, and now they're a quarterback and other stuff away from winning the Super Bowl.
Yeah, I mean, I don't really have a whole lot to add there. I feel pretty confident in the Saints to win this game. Alvin Kamara is really good. He definitely looked a little bit better this past week with Drew Brees under center as opposed to when Taysom Hill was in control. Brees did make a few good throws, late in the game, even as the Saints ultimately lost. The Vikings are certainly a dangerous team. Their defense is pretty solid. They've got good weapons between Cook, Thielen, and Jefferson. But I just don't trust them to get it done in New Orleans.
Is the Vikings defense actually pretty solid? I feel like they've been
solid.
terrible.
It's not terrible. It also hasn't been great.
Okay.
I feel like the Vikings defense is good when they're playing bad teams. Like they can really run it up against a crummy team, but if you've got the weapons, you can light them on fire.
Okay.
Plus the Bears lit them up, so I mean.
Oh well, then no.
I mean that might be fair. They're also not the most consistent unit.
That's not. Mitchell Trubisky doesn't light people up. That's not a thing that he does.
I kind of like though just the you can take like the two snapshots of how well the Vikings defense played, although I struggle to call it playing well, against the Nick Foles Bears, where the Foles Bears couldn't do anything, whereas the Trubisky Bears were extremely effective offensively against them.
Yeah, I literally just pulled that up on here. The Vikings defense had a minus 43.5 DVOA against the Foles-led Bears and a positive 15.2 against the Trubisky-led Bears.
Yeah, so
that's a 58. That's a 50, almost 59% difference.
So Trubisky can't throw very accurately, but he at least does something, whereas Foles just stands there and gets sacked.
Trubisky's been more accurate since he's come back, though, over the past couple of weeks. And even early in the season, he wasn't that inaccurate.
I mean,
obviously they should have drafted him over Mahomes.
And Deshaun
He's been more accurate.
Well, they did. So
yeah, and he's got a better record than Deshaun Watson. So there's that.
Yeah, he does.
Well, Deshaun Watson has no team.
That's true, but that's irrelevant.
They traded his best receiver to Arizona and got a ham sandwich in return.
That ham sandwich's name is David Johnson.
Oh, okay. And he's been so great with them.
He's been good.
He was okay.
He's been as good as DeAndre Hopkins.
No. But
Who is?
We never said that.
Yeah, and then his other receivers got suspended for PEDs. Like, what's he supposed to do? They paid Laramie Tunsil a bajillion dollars to be not the best offensive lineman in his draft class. So, what is Watson supposed to do?
Throw it to Kiki QT, who fumbles the ball into the end zone to lose the game.
Oh, okay. Well, Kiki QT.
Well, I picked up Will Fuller today. Might keep him next year. Might keep him next year. We'll see.
He's suspended the game next year too.
One game.
I learned my lesson with Josh Gordon. I don't pick up suspended guys because the fantasy season is so short. You need to have your full range of options. So a guy on your team,
I'm out. I lost last week. I'm done.
I mean, Will Fuller also has a history of injuries, so I'm not sure I'd want him.
Except this year,
yeah, he was healthy this year.
PEDs.
Yeah, because he didn't get hurt because he got suspended before he could get hurt.
He had plenty of opportunities to get hurt this year.
Okay, so he survived almost one season.
Yeah.
I'm going to keep him because of that.
You're going to keep Will Fuller.
Possibly. I've got other options.
Good player.
I've got other options. I've also got Damian Williams.
Dolphins at Raiders. Corey and Eric are both on the Dolphins. I'm picking the Raiders, not because I think the Raiders are going to win, but because I'm behind and I need the Raiders to win for the Ravens to get in the playoffs.
That's really what I kind of figured.
The only reason. But, it's late in the year, and I'm just throwing stuff out there at this point.
Yeah, I don't see it. Tua's been playing pretty well. Dolphins' defense is good. The Raiders' defense is bad. Derek Carr has been, he's hurt now.
Injured.
He's not playing.
And I don't think he's going to be playing, so it's going to be probably Marcus Mariota, who actually did play pretty well.
Yeah, he looked all right.
I was happy to see him play well. I've never been a huge Mariota fan, but it's nice to see a guy come out and do that. But it's also not uncommon to see a backup quarterback come out because of an injury and play well, especially when they're as athletic as Marcus Mariota is. The other team has not been it's a completely different playing style that Mariota has compared to Carr, which means that there was no preparation for that style of offense. The Dolphins will be prepared for that style of offense this week, and I think that they'll be able to defend it, defend it better than the Chargers were able to. So yeah, I'm taking the Dolphins with 6 confidence points.
Yeah, at first glance, I thought that putting 8 on them might have been a little much, just because, the Raiders are still have a pretty competitive offense.
Yeah.
And, and Mariota did play well, and we've seen at times throughout his career, Mariota been able to put together some stretches where he looked like a really good quarterback. So it's possible that he could come out and have a good game. Whereas the Dolphins, I feel like they're in this place where they're so well coached and they've got a good defense and they've got all this going on, but they just don't seem like a super high ceiling team necessarily. Like they're not going to go out there and run you off the field. So it might be a little bit lower scoring than we might think. So I don't know. I definitely think that the Dolphins should and will win. I don't think that Tua should have any problem passing against the Raiders, but I just don't want to discount what the Raiders can do offensively that could make this interesting. And also, I have to wonder if this is the first game ever between 2 Hawaiian starting quarterbacks in the NFL, because that's kind of wild.
Probably is.
I mean, can't imagine there's been many Hawaiian starting quarterbacks, and certainly not at the same time playing each other. So
that is interesting. Yeah, I certainly have an eye on this game. This game is on Saturday, by the way. There's a bunch of Saturday games this week, and only one of them qualified to make our sheet. If you want to see all of our picks, we don't talk about all the games most of the time, but if you want to see all of our picks, be sure to check out our blog. So, moving on, Panthers at football team. Corey and I have the football team at 4 and 3 points respectively. Eric has 6 on the Panthers. Wow. Why the Panthers with so many?
Because Dwayne Haskins is terrible. I mean, I know that the team's defense is wonderful and could potentially turn this game by themselves, especially if they have an outing like they did against the 49ers. But, I mean, how often do you see 57 or 47-yard touchdown returns on fumbles? I mean, that's really what helped put the game away against that 49ers team. I think the Panthers are a bit more competent right now than the 49ers are offensively. And so, I mean, if Washington wants to win this game, they're going to have to – I think they're going to have to come close to pitching a shutout. And I'm not going to bet on that.
First of all, Alex Smith is expected to play this weekend.
Oh, well, all right, whatever. But I still don't think he's that good either. But he's definitely better than Dwayne Haskins.
I mean, we haven't lost a game that Alex Smith has started yet this season.
The Washington quarterback situation is a complete mess. Like, it's the guy with one good leg, or the guy who hired strippers for a private party and didn't wear a mask. Like, which one do you want?
Actually, I take that back. We've lost one game. We're 4-1 with him as a starter.
I was going to say, didn't Smith start against the Lions?
Yeah, he did.
Yeah. which was his best game, and we lost that one.
Yeah.
Because of course.
But yeah, I mean, the point though is Washington's defense is really good. I think that the Seahawks are better than the Panthers, and Washington was pretty close against them with Dwayne Haskins at quarterback. So even with Haskins, I would pick Washington to win this game, but I'm basically going like I'd put 1 point on them if it was Haskins, about 7 if it's Alex. So I'm just splitting the difference and going 4 just in case Alex Smith doesn't start, even though he's expected to.
Or if he doesn't finish, something happens
Yeah.
to him. I don't have a whole lot of confidence in Alex Smith, to be honest. The poor guy, it's I mean, it goes without saying he's had a rough go of it the last couple of years since his initial horrible injury, and now his current injury is to the same leg that was really badly injured 2 years ago. So, it's that guy or Haskins who has no idea what to do ever. But still, I go Washington. It's a Ron Rivera revenge game. Say that 5 times fast. Good luck.
Washington is the team that got him fired by beating them last year. So now he can beat his old team and basically clinch a playoff spot.
I mean, that's kind of galaxy-brained.
That's also part of what worries me about picking the team is this game actually matters a lot, and historically that's not been a good sign for Washington. That could just be a jaded fan coming out there, but I mean, I don't know. I feel like they might need to wait until week 17 to clinch because.
Well, they can just go beat Philly, and that'll be it.
That's what I'm saying. Although Philly with Jalen Hurts is a different animal. Like that team looks a lot more competitive with him than with Carson Wentz. Because my goodness,
that is true. Because Wentz
awful.
Yeah, he's hold it long enough just to throw an interception or get himself sacked. That's
and fumble.
Really all he did. But yeah, I'm going with the football team in a squeaker. So we'll see. Oh, I thought I was going to be the lone wolf on this pick, but apparently not. Colts at Steelers. Eric is on the lonely island. Corey and I have 3 and 8 on the Steelers. Eric has 5 on Indy. What makes you think that a dome team is going to go on the road to frigid, grass-fielded Pittsburgh and win? Yeah, why do you think the Colts there?
Because the dome team runs the ball. I mean, it's not like they rely on a high-flying passing attack. I'm not that worried about the conditions. What would have made me think that the Pittsburgh Steelers would lose to the damn Bengals with a third-string quarterback out there? I mean, the Steelers suck right now. Like they're a bad football team. They're not a team that's hit a little bit of a rough spot. They're outright free-falling right now. They're hanging out with Tom Petty. They are just not going anywhere. So this is
who Tom Petty is.
I'm going to pretend I didn't hear that. So I honestly, the Colts are playing much better football than the Steelers right now.
No, Richard Petty is.
Yeah. Okay. There's just I don't see any way.
Eric is heartbroken right now.
I'm okay.
Well, forgive me for not.
You get the reference.
That's a good joke, by the way.
Thank you.
Yes,
come on, acknowledge.
I didn't hear what Corey said.
Yeah, I did, and it doesn't matter. The Colts are better. I don't realize why I need more of an explanation. That they're the better football team. They're favored in this game on the road. So frankly, I don't get why you guys are feeling the Steelers. The Steelers haven't shown any ability to beat an NFL team in a month. They won one game, and it was against a fake Ravens team, and they barely did that. So what am I missing?
Yeah, I mean, I honestly,
I'm
more surprised by Evan's pick than I am Eric's because I was kind of between the two. I ended up going Steelers with low confidence. Evan, you've got 8 points on the underdogs in this game, I believe. I'm pretty sure the Colts are favored by like 3 points.
That's what Eric just said.
Right.
Yeah, this is a crazy pick for me. late in the year, I need to make up some points. Maybe the Steelers finally figure out how to play football this week. I'm the guy coming out of the stands to try to take BP and swing for the fence to get free season tickets. It's really, really all I'm doing here. The Steelers, like Eric said, haven't shown the ability to play NFL football the past 3 weeks. And, they had to squeak by against the COVID-infested Ravens practice squad. So, they haven't won a game since that. They have failed to execute on offense. Their defense taking a little bit of a step back. But I'm picking Pittsburgh because it's going to be cold, and I really just don't trust dome teams outside late in the year. You just can't.
I'm gonna actually look up. I might, among my 10 million research projects that I've said I was going to do that I never do. I'm kind of curious just to see how well dome teams do against the spread when they have to play in sub 40 degree or in any type of conditions. Just because I'm curious to see how much they underperform or maybe don't. But I don't see it.
So my reasoning for going Pittsburgh, and remember, I'm going low confidence here because I definitely think the Colts have the chance to win this game. I don't want to write them off completely, and I was kind of going back and forth between these two on this game, but I refuse to believe that a team coached by Mike Tomlin, a team that clearly knows how to prepare because they did it for 11 straight games to open this season, just doesn't know how to prepare for a football game. And I have to believe that after 3 straight losses, including an absolutely embarrassing one to a team that you blew out less than a month earlier, that you can't then turn around and be like, okay, we really need to focus down and get this job done this week. Does that necessarily mean that they'll win the game? No. But I have to believe that they will be prepared for this game, and a prepared Steelers team can win, especially at home against a dome team. So that really is, I think that this should be a fairly even matchup, and I do follow Evan's logic on the dome team playing in the cold. That was kind of my tiebreaker for me.
Yeah, I mean, you would hope that after 3 humbling defeats that it would be a wake-up call for the Steelers, but they're also on a short week, so the preparation part of it might be impacted a little bit by them. Plus, the Colts get paid too, and they get paid to prepare too, and they kind of need to win this game.
Oh, sure. So. Yeah, absolutely. That's why I'm not writing them off at all. I mean,
they're favorites, so it'd probably be ill-advised to write them off. I mean, I would never write off a favorite because that sounds crazy. Just to say, the favorite can't win. Like, what? No, what?
Yeah, I mean, like I said, it is a crazy pick from me. I'm just
a lot of confidence, surprising number of confidence points.
Yeah, I'm just letting it fly at this point.
Hey, gotta do what you gotta do.
Yeah. Let's see where are we.
Meanwhile, you're going very low confidence, or you're going kind of high confidence in the team that beat the team that you have high confidence in, which I guess makes sense.
That didn't make sense at all, Corey. I didn't follow.
I didn't follow that at all, but whatever. Let's move on.
Bengals at Texans. Corey and Eric have 10 on the Texans. I've got 5 on the Texans. Like I said, the Texans just aren't much of a team. They're Deshaun Watson and J.J. Watt and 51 guys, from the YMCA or wherever. So at the NFL level, you gotta play well, and I haven't seen that from the Texans. They did hang with the Colts again. I believe they played a close game in their first matchup. But the Bengals are hot right now. At least hot for the Bengals. They won a game. So, maybe they're believing in themselves a little bit. And they'll roll into Houston with some swagger. So I think there's more than no chance whatsoever that the Bengals win. So I only put 5 on Houston instead of 10 or 12.
I was a little bit nervous about the 10 points I put on them until I looked at the spreads and I realized that the Texans are favored to beat the Bengals by more than the Bears are favored to beat the Jaguars, or than the Saints are favored to beat the Vikings. So, yeah, I mean, I feel pretty confident the Texans can and will win this game. I think the Bengals, played above their level against the Steelers, which, sometimes is typical when you play against a good team, especially a good team in your division. I believe that the Texans are a better team than the Bengals, and so I believe that they will win this game. And I feel pretty confident in that. But, I could also very well end up regretting putting double digits on them.
What is the line on this game?
8 in favor of the Texans.
Oh, I would pick the Bengals to cover that because within a touchdown.
I think that's a pretty good line for this game. So the Texans have the best player on the field by far in Deshaun Watson. They're playing the Bengals. Deshaun Watson's a top 5 quarterback in the league. Top 5 quarterbacks in the league don't lose to the Bengals. They just don't. I don't care what's around them. The Bengals are horrible. The Bengals don't have anything that they can throw at to stifle Deshaun Watson. At least the Bears had a compelling defense that could give him fits and ruin his day, which is what they did. The Colts, same thing. They could bottle him up to some extent. That's not going to happen with the Bengals. Deshaun Watson's going to be able to do whatever he wants offensively, and that's going to be all she wrote.
Okay. What about Deshaun Watson? He does hold the ball a long time. What if the Bengals pass rush was having some success against Pittsburgh on Monday night? So, but that could play a factor. I mean, all you got to do is just one sack fumble taken back to the house, and that flips the whole game around.
It sounds like a lot to hope for a chance to win. Strip sack fumble for a tutty. I don't see it.
I mean, weird stuff happens in this game.
Oh yeah, and that's why I am not maxing out my confidence for this to happen, but I'm going to predict it not to happen because it doesn't usually happen.
Okay. Yeah, I mean that's good logic. Giants at Ravens. We all have 13 on the Ravens. The Ravens should roll in this game. There's really no reason why the Ravens shouldn't roll in this game. I don't think it's going to be a 40-14 situation. But the Ravens win by at least 2 scores. I'm thinking so. I mean, the Giants, their defense isn't great. Their offense mostly plays offense for the other team. So Danny Dimes is going to play this week, which I think is good because Colt McCoy seemed like he had some sense not to just throw it wherever and hold on to the ball way too long and fumble it. But Danny Dimes is a bit more of a risk taker. So he's prone to making a lot of mistakes. I see no way how the Ravens lose. But, I had 14 on Pittsburgh against Cincinnati, and we saw how that worked out.
Yeah, the Giants kind of we're getting a little bit of gassing up for about a month where people were talking about, oh my God, Joe Judge, such a good coach, and this team, the defense looks amazing, and Danny Dimes is the truth. And I'm like, but none of these things are true. So why are you saying like you're just making it all up? Like none of this has actually happened. Like they beat the Seahawks, but the Seahawks have been trending down offensively for a while now. Yeah. I mean, Evan and I were barely clinging to Russell Wilson as our MVP pick back in like week 8 or 9 when we did our midseason awards. And within a week or two, that was thoroughly gone. So, and it's only gotten, it's maybe it's not gotten worse at this point, but it's definitely plummeted and maybe it's bottomed out, but it certainly isn't trending up for the Seahawks. I'm not going to give the Giants a ton of credit for pulling off that upset because I just watched the team almost pull off a similar upset, and they had Dwayne Haskins starting. So, I mean, every other game that the Giants have played since then, they got housed by Cleveland. And the thing is, like, the Browns only scored, 20 points, but they had, 6 possessions the entire game because they just meticulously moved the ball down the field, and the Giants couldn't get off the field. I'm like, this is supposed to be some vaunted offense, And while the Browns' offense has been cooking, it's not like it's a super talented offensive group in the passing game. Baker's having a really good run, but their best receiver is Jarvis Landry. Again, good player, but if you told me Jarvis Landry was your best receiver, I'd say you got a pretty average receiving core. Like, you wouldn't say Jarvis Landry's the number one on an elite offense in most situations. But the Giants had no answers for it. They had no answer for the run game because the Browns' run game is great. They haven't looked competitive the last couple of weeks like they were supposed to be. Everybody's telling me, "Oh yeah, look at the Giants." I mean,
rolled by the Cardinals.
the Cardinals made them look silly, and the Cardinals hadn't been playing that good of football in recent times either. So I think the Giants have the whole mystique of the up and coming Giants has faded. I think we're going to see a similar situation in the offseason where people try to convince us that because the Giants had a respectable month in like November, that somehow this team's going to turn the corner and Danny Dimes is going to be a breakout star, and none of it's true. Like, this team's still not very good.
Yeah, I mean, the Giants actually did have a good overall defensive DVOA against Arizona, but that all came from their run defense. Their pass defense was a sieve in that game, and they only got worse against Cleveland. Their offense, after having a weirdly okay game against Seattle, still not good, regressed against Arizona and wasn't very good against Cleveland. So yeah, I mean the Giants, I don't see them getting into the playoffs at this point, and I definitely don't see them beating the Ravens. The Ravens are a good team. The Giants are not a particularly good team. Their offense isn't good. Their defense is inconsistent at best and really not good, in my opinion. So I have no worries about the 13 points I put on Baltimore.
Yeah, and the Ravens are trending up. Lamar's starting to get it going again.
Yeah,
it seems like the Ravens have, to use certain language, to have turned the corner with their coronavirus issues and seem to be having somewhat levels of health returning to them, which means that their offense is going to be able to roll.
Yeah. Hopefully, anyway. Let's see. Broncos at Chargers. Oh, this game is a toilet bowl. Eric and I have the Chargers. I really have way too many points on the Chargers, but, I've had the Chargers last couple weeks, so we'll just roll with him again. Corey's got 5 on Denver. Why 5 on Denver? Why Denver at all? I don't think Denver has anything going for them.
I think Denver's defense is still okay. I know that they didn't do anything to slow down Josh Allen last week, and I know that Herbert has been really good this year, and so that would make a lot of people worried. But Denver has also had some really good defensive games this season. They actually played pretty well against Kansas City a couple weeks ago. Their defensive DVOA was only a 3. And in fact, their pass DVOA was only a 7 against, arguably the best quarterback in the National Football League. So I think that their defense can slow down Herbert. I think that their offense is a little bit underrated. It certainly is capable of having really awful games like it did against New Orleans, against Vegas. Even this past week against Buffalo, their offense wasn't very good. But they've had some good games mixed in there as well. And against a team that just keeps coming back to these same issues with special teams that inexplicably ruin games for them. And in fact, a team that isn't really all that strong defensively either in the Chargers. I give the Broncos a chance to win this game, and I think that they will win it. But I'm not super confident. I just also don't have a whole lot of confidence in the Chargers.
I don't know why anybody would have a whole lot of confidence in the Chargers, but according to these confidence points, I do have a lot of confidence in them. Oh, boy. This is a big risk. Counting on the Chargers for any number of points is a big risk because, just thinking back to the way the first time these teams matched up, how the Chargers had a huge lead. I think they're up by 17 or 20 points late in the game.
Yep.
And then they figured out how not to win. I think the Broncos had fourth down with no time left in the Chargers' red zone. And then they threw a pass that was ruled incomplete and then went to review and was turned into a touchdown. And then Chargers lose. It's unbelievable how the Chargers figure out how to lose. I believe I picked the Chargers in that game too, and that didn't work out. So it's just hold your nose and pick the Chargers. That's really what you got to do at this point. They seem to be on a little bit of a hot streak, as hot as they could be, playing the Raiders, who are terrible, and the Falcons, who are terrible.
Yeah, this is tough because, every time you think of the Chargers, you think of them as a good team because they resemble one, and yet they don't win. So It makes it kind of hard. This is a toilet bowl, so it's a little bit tough to decipher who's going to suck less on Sunday. But I don't know. I feel like the Chargers' better quarterback inclines me to roll with them. Maybe that's ill-advised, but I don't know. The Broncos.
They're at home.
Yeah, I don't know if that matters. The Broncos just haven't shown me enough to make me go with them in these type of games where it's like a toss-up because both teams are awful. I'm inclined to go against the Broncos just because I don't think that they're very good.
Yeah, I don't think Denver's any good either. I think Denver thinks they're better than they think they are, or than they actually are.
Let's write that one down.
Yeah, you know what I mean. But, okay, well now the Google Doc has decided it needs to reload and freeze. Okay, here we go. The next game, Eagles at Cowboys. Eric and I have 4 on the Eagles. Corey, you have 9 on the Eagles. Why are you so confident that? We know Dallas's defense is abysmal, and Ezekiel Elliott is fumbling and getting outplayed by his backup, and Andy Dalton's just okay. But why are you so confident in the Eagles, who bumble around all the time?
Because Jalen Hurts looks good. I think that he'll be the best quarterback on the field. And I think Miles Sanders is going to be the best running back on the field. And I think that the Eagles' defense is going to be the best defense that's on the field. So I'm feeling pretty good about this one.
That's solid reasoning. I have a hard time disagreeing. But just the Eagles, I feel like they play down to their competition. It's hard to play down to your competition when you're bad too, I guess. But they did turn in a turd sandwich against the Bengals. They absolutely blew the Washington game back in Week 1. They're up 17-0 and decided, you know what, we'll just hand them the game instead. The Eagles haven't played like a team that deserves a lot of confidence in them this season, even if they are playing an opponent who's considerably worse than this.
Yeah, that's kind of where I'm at too. I think the Eagles are better. I think Jalen Hurts' presence makes them better. But the issue is that Jalen Hurts has only started 2 games in his career. Long term, I don't think he's the guy. I just don't. I think that he's going to get figured out pretty quickly. But he's playing good right now. And, if that continues, the Eagles are going to win. If the Cowboys get a beat on them or something like that, and somehow the bloom falls off the rose a little earlier than we thought, then the game could be more interesting. But I'm just not willing to spring a ton of confidence on the Eagles, especially because, the Cowboys' offense has been alive and well the last couple of weeks against some tomato can teams that they beat the crap out of. And the Eagles kind of fit the make for that. So I don't think that the Cowboys will have difficulties scoring on Philly. So the Philly's going to have to score with them. And they should be able to do that. I think they will be able to do that, but I'm not gonna bet a ton on it.
Yeah, I just don't feel like the Eagles can be trusted.
I don't think anybody in the NFC East can be trusted.
That is true. That is true.
I would be all in on Philly on their +2 line right now.
Oh yeah, Philly getting points. Smash that!
Yeah,
run,
Cowboys
run to the betting window right away.
No. I'm sorry. The Cowboys are +2. The Eagles are -2. But yeah, like I would be all over the Eagles even so.
I'm less enthused about Eagles -2.
I mean, I don't think the 2 points is enough to move me off Philly. That's not that doesn't seem like a significant amount of points.
I don't think I would move off of Philly until it got to like at least 3.5.
Yeah, that probably sounds about right. I can see the Eagles winning this game by 3 points at the fewest.
Yeah, I'd want. I would probably move off Philly if it got to 3. Like anything inside 3, I would say, yeah, give me Philly, and I'll lay the points.
Okay. Oops. So we reverse the colors. Let's see. Rams at Seahawks. I think this is the game where we're most conflicted between us. Well, yeah. Rams at Seahawks. Corey and I have the Rams with 2-1. Eric's got 1 on Seattle. What makes you so 100% confident in Seattle that you're guaranteeing a win?
Nothing. They're at home. That might be it. I mean, the Seahawks, like I said, they're not trending in the right direction offensively, but neither of the Rams, because as we just saw, they lost to the Jets. So I don't expect the Jets loss to have a big carryover effect on the Rams' performance. I think that they're professionals and they'll be able to bounce back, but it's still not assuring to watch the Rams lose at home.
It's still a blemish on their record.
It's definitely a blemish, but the Seahawks have some blemishes on their record too. They lost to the Rams already. Russell Wilson probably had, I don't care what the numbers say.
His worst game.
I think that was his worst game because like I've seen games that he's had where he's thrown multiple interceptions and had turnovers, but this was one where he threw the game away because he made a pass that he didn't have to make, and it resulted in a turnover when the alternative play was there and would have been very successful. So that was a moment where you couldn't defend what Russell Wilson did. But I know the Rams defensive line is going to wreak havoc. But I also know that the Seahawks defense has picked it up a little bit. Jamal Adams being healthy has made a big deal. The addition of Carlos Dunlap has given their pass rush something, which might be enough to handle a pretty struggling offensive unit from the Rams. The Rams are so inconsistent. You know, like that's the thing is 1 week they look like they're going to win the Super Bowl. The other week they lose to the Jets. Or they get blown out by the Dolphins. So I don't know what to make of them. On the road, I don't trust them. So that's home field advantage. Go Hawks. That's it.
The thing that surprised me was that the Rams rushing, like offensive rush DVOA, was better against the Jets than it was against the Patriots when it seemed like Cam Akers could just run. You know, he was gashing the Patriots on every time he touched the ball for these huge gains. So that really surprised me.
That leads me to believe that their issue was with Jared Goff in the passing game.
Right, and it has been for the past couple of weeks. He has not looked very good in 3 out of the last 4 weeks, in fact. He looked good against Arizona. He looked bad against San Francisco, New England, and the Jets. So I am a little bit worried about him in this game, which is why I'm not willing to put more confidence on the Rams. Because I think that the Seahawks have been trending so far in the wrong direction. Whereas the Rams they've been inconsistent. They've been like riding this wave of up and down. But when you average all that out, they're still remaining sort of on the same line that they've been all year. It's just you don't know which side of that line they're going to be on week to week. Whereas the Seahawks, it's started to be kind of this steady downward trend, which to me suggests that the Rams should win this game, whether they're on the top side or the bottom side of that line. But there is that chance with the way that Goff has been playing recently that they could fall way below that line more so than we've seen so far. But the big thing is that the defense, I think, is going to keep them in this. So even if Jared Goff does make some mistakes, the defense is going to keep the run game viable for the Rams, which will allow them to, I think, remain in control down the stretch of this game and ultimately win it. But they're also on the road, so I had to penalize them a few confidence points for that.
Yeah, I think this is going to be the best game of the weekend. One of them, anyway. I feel like the Rams are better and should win, but then the Jared Goff situation has come up again, where he just turns into a pumpkin some weeks. I don't know what his deal is, to be honest. Like sometimes he looks.
Oh, Evan. I mean, I would say crashed, but he's not on his computer.
No, he's back. He's back.
I'm here.
Yeah, we lost you there for a second.
Oh, okay. Well, Jared Goff does weird stuff sometimes. But then also, like y'all said, the Seahawks have been trending downward lately. Like their Seahawks offense was, looking like a Peyton Manning team from his Colts days early in the season, and then now they can't really do much of anything. And though their defense has improved from being the worst ever, it's still not good. I think the Seahawks negatives outweigh the Rams negatives, and Aaron Donald is gonna eat the Seahawks line for breakfast, lunch, and dinner. They better quadruple team him again, otherwise he'll just be in their backfield all afternoon.
Eric often says that Jared Goff is fine when everything around him is perfect. And that's one of the things that's concerned me recently about Jared Goff is the fact that things are not, they can't get a whole lot more perfect offensively than what he's got. Cam Akers is back, he's healthy, and he's running really well. He's still got his offensive weapons in Woods and Kupp. Josh Reynolds has been fairly good. He's got his tight ends. I mean, I don't know what else Jared Goff needs, and yet he's only getting worse, it seems.
Yeah, it's peculiar. I mean, I think that a big part of it is that Goff's a guy that doesn't handle pressure well. And I think that a lot of times when you get in his face, that's when the mistakes start to flow a little bit. But I also another reason why I picked the Seahawks, though, and this could be me. I could be full of crap on this, but over the last 8 or 9 years, I feel like Russell Wilson doesn't get swept very often by division rivals, and that could mean absolutely nothing, but it's just a vibe that I get. Like even when his team looks like it's inferior, he finds a way to win one of those games. Like last year against the 49ers, who had a way better team than the Seahawks, Russell Wilson found a way to win one, and the other one was really close. I think he split with the Rams last year. One of the times they got smoked, but he won the other one. So it just feels like somehow this dude doesn't let you beat him twice. I don't know what it is. I don't know if it's even real, but it's a vibe I get that he's not going to get swept.
Okay. I can't argue against that, I guess, but okay. I'll argue against you guys on this one. Titans at Packers. You all have the Titans at 1 and 2. I've got the Packers with 7.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I actually believe in this one. I've been seeing on the schedule for a long time. I don't understand how the Titans are going to. Well, I mean, I understand how they would score more points than the Packers, but I don't see that happening, I guess. I feel like the Packers, they have something going where they're just dominating everybody. And then they get to play at home at Lambeau, night game. They'll have, I imagine they'll have another smattering of fans, another couple hundred or whatever. I feel like the Packers have some sort of it factor this season that's why they're so good. Could they clinch the 1 seed with a win this week? Because the Saints lost to somebody.
Yeah, I guess they could. Although I don't know what Seattle's situation is.
Oh, okay. Um, but yeah, the Packers are rolling. Maybe they're doing it with smoke and mirrors or something, but they're doing it. Um, I certainly think the Titans, with their ball control style offense, the way they run the ball, um, will certainly be a factor. But the Titans' defense is terrible. Um, it's absolutely terrible. So, put that terrible Titans defense up against Aaron Rodgers at Lambeau Field. That's not a good combination. Um, I don't see. I feel like the Packers could just cut their punter this week. Just get rid of him. They won't need him this week. Um, they'll just score every time, and the Titans won't be able to keep up offensively.
I don't have the same concerns, honestly, with this. I mean, I think that the Packers can win this. I only put 1 point on Tennessee, but the Packers have beaten fewer teams with winning records this season than the Bengals have. The Bengals have 3 wins and the Packers have 3 losses, and yet the Packers are not winning against the good teams. And the Titans are a good team. The Titans are a good offense. Yes, their defense has not been that great, but we also know that this is the time of year that Derrick Henry is at his best. He's healthy. He's running wild. I know that the Packers' run defense is pretty solid. They had a really good outing against Carolina this past week. But I think part of that was just Carolina not putting together a very good run scheme at all offensively. Because before that point, the Packers' only other good run, really great run game defensively, had been against Houston, and I think that was while David Johnson was not on the field. So I think Derrick Henry's going to run wild. I think that Ryan Tannehill has fixed whatever weird issues he was having in the middle of the season because he's been looking a lot better lately. He's throwing the ball well. He's making good use of Corey Davis and A.J. Brown. And Jonnu Smith is back involved in the game plan, which he'd kind of disappeared in the middle of the season. I think that may have been a part of what was causing some of their offensive struggles for a little while. I think the Titans are more than capable of winning this game. There's no way that I would put as much confidence on the Packers as you have, Evan, because I just don't see if the Packers do win this game, it's going to be a squeaker.
Yeah, I think the Packers they have this tendency, and this has happened multiple times, regardless of who they're playing, where their offense just disappears for an entire half. And you can get away with that against the Carolina Panthers. They barely did. They didn't get away with it against the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. If you remember that blowout game, the Packers were up 10-0. They put together 2 really nice drives to open that game. And then Rodgers threw a pick six and all hell broke loose. We saw similar things happen in other games that they played. We saw it happen against the Colts, where they jumped out to a big lead. They got a nice forced fumble that led to a touchdown right before the half. And then they didn't score again until a desperation drive with less than a minute on the clock to force overtime. And that was after the Colts gave them a gajillion holding penalties. So I just don't see the Packers being consistent enough to handle a game plan that involves Derrick Henry running it down your throat for 3.5 hours. I mean, they're just not going to have the leeway that they normally have. Normally it's, okay, you have 3 or 4 bad drives offensively where you haven't figured it out. That's normally fine because you get the ball back and you probably get the ball 10, 11, 12 times, and you can do work the rest of the time. If Derrick Henry shortens this game like we know he can, and the Packers only get the ball 7 or 8 times, and they go into a lull, it's lights out because we know Tennessee can score with the best of them, and we know that the Packers' offense and their lulls aren't susceptible or they're not averse to doing it even against bad defenses. They did it against the Panthers, whose defense is terrible. So it's not like it's a good defense figures them out. It's sometimes the Packers just lose it, and it's happened more often than it should.
Okay, I mean, I don't disagree that much. but I do disagree a little bit. The last game of the week and the last game on our sheet, Bills at Patriots. We're all on the Bills. Eric and I have got 14 on Buffalo. Corey, you only have 7. Guess start with you. Why only 7?
Game is in New England. Bill Belichick is coaching in the game. It's a divisional game, so I'm not willing to go double digits. I do think the Bills should win this game. They've certainly been playing a whole lot better than the Patriots have of late. Josh Allen is coming off of arguably his best game of the season. The run game has been looking better for the Bills lately, with Devin Singletary finally kind of breaking through a little bit. He still has not been ultra effective, but he's played well enough that they're no longer, they seem to be moving away from this weird duo of him and Zach Moss that hasn't been working at all this season. Stephon Diggs looks good. Gabriel Davis looks good. Defensively, they've been pretty sound. But the Patriots defense has also been better recently. And I'm not going to just completely write off Cam Newton in the offense, even though the offense has not, really looks like they want to put up a whole lot of a fight. It's not like Cam Newton is just throwing in the towel. He is still working hard. He still has the capability of coming through in some big moments. And I'm not going to completely write off the Patriots in this game.
I'm writing off the Patriots in this game. The Bills are hot right now. Patriots, I mean, they're ready to pack it up and go home for the season. Like they get eliminated from the playoffs. They don't have anything to hang their hat on over there anymore. Like their defense was great last year. It's not this year. Their offense was okay last year. It's terrible this year. And the Bills, they got it rolling with all the people you mentioned, Corey. I don't see the Patriots really putting up a fight, frankly.
The concern here for me with the matchup is that the Patriots' pass defense has been really good over the last 4 games. It's their run defense that has struggled. And while Devin Singletary has kind of taken over things in that backfield for the most part, that doesn't mean that the Buffalo Bills have a good run offense. Their run game, their rushing has still been somewhat ineffective. They ran the ball okay against Pittsburgh, but they couldn't run the ball at all against the 49ers or the Broncos. So I don't trust them to necessarily, be able to use the run to set up the pass against the Patriots, even though the Patriots run defense isn't great. The Bills' run offense isn't good enough to take advantage, in my opinion. So I think it's going to be left up completely to Josh Allen, and while he is certainly capable, the Patriots defense has also shown that it's capable of shutting him down.
Yeah, the thing is, Corey, you mentioned that those games against the 49ers and the Broncos and the Steelers where they weren't able to run the ball, but it didn't matter because Josh Allen lit them up anyway. So, I mean, Josh Allen's playing at that high of a level where, I think that the first time these teams matched up, Allen was kind of going into that midseason lull where he was coming off a high early in the season where he was earning some early MVP chatter, and then he had some bad games. But he seems like he's righted the ship and he's back to playing at that level. And like I mentioned a few weeks ago, when Allen was still kind of coming out of that, the Bills' defense has really stepped up and they're playing good football. So I think that they're in good shape. I don't think that the Patriots have anything to threaten them with. Cam can't throw the ball anymore. He's going to try, like you said, but, trying doesn't help you in the NFL. You got to be able to execute, and you got to be able to execute in the passing game as well. I think that this is Bills all the way.
Yeah, do or do not. There is no try. Corey, I'm sure you know.
Yes, Corey's very aware of Yoda.
That's the end of our game picks. Let's see. Do we have any? Did I miss anything? I might have missed something.
I don't think you did.
Not. You don't think I did? Okay. We went through all the bowl games. So, any shout-outs? I'll shout out to my sister, Farron Ash, who smoked us in the points picks this week, or last week. She's here. Not on the show this week. I'm sure she'd beat us again. So, and then want to wish everybody Merry Christmas. Please be safe, wear a mask, wash your hands, social distance, as well as bathe. Let's see what else. Everybody in the state of Georgia, please vote. This is of the utmost importance that you vote. I cannot stress that enough. You have to vote, period, at the end. So, you don't have any shout-outs anybody you'd like to mention before we get out of here?
No, I think I'm good.
Happy Festivus, and I hope everybody has a good holiday.
Okay. Alrighty, well, I guess that'll do it for this week's show. James and Sean and Drew, be sure to get your picks in. Thank you all so much for listening. If you made it this far into the podcast, please subscribe. Please give us a rating and or review if you feel so inclined. You can find this podcast wherever you found it right now. In addition, it's on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Google Podcasts, and Amazon Podcasts. You can send us an email, thesportsballers@gmail.com. If you're a sponsor or a fan, please feel free to send us an email. We don't get very many emails, so we'll certainly get back to you. You can follow us on Twitter. Follow the show at SportsBallers18. You can follow Corey at Corey Puffett. You can follow Eric at Quagmire67. And you can follow me at Evan_Ash13. So feel free to reach out to us if you have any questions, concerns, or snide remarks.
We like snide remarks.
Yeah. If you have any snide remarks, feel free to let us know. So I guess that'll just about do it. Merry Christmas, everybody. And for Eric and for Corey, I'm Evan. This has been the Sports Ballers Podcast. Thank you so much for listening, and we will talk to you next week.